Alright guys, so we spent the last couple of days ripping everything out in the nook and in the settee, and we cleaned the contact cement, cleaned off the extra bits of fiberglass, and cleaned off the paint. But now you can clearly see the reason why we had to rip everything out, and these reasons are here. Those knees, the bottom of it is completely cracked out. Like you can put a whole paper in it.
The reason why our knees delaminated is because back when we were originally renovating the structural floors underneath our cabin sole, way back at the beginning to solve our wobbly keel problem, the yard picked us up and set us back down in a different spot after we took out all of the structure. So it changed the shape of our hull a little bit because none of these bulkheads are tabbed to the hull. And so the hull's relatively flexible. And when they set us down, it changed the shape of our hull ever so slightly. And so when we retightened the rig after we launched, it was pulling on these knees at a different angle, and the weakest link was the bottom right here, where it's not really tabbed to the hull properly. And so that kind of delaminated, pulled the hull in, created those dimples, and we've been sailing with them ever since because this was a huge project and we weren't ready to face it yet. And this is also the reason we've never really tuned our rig properly, and it's always a little bit more slack than it probably should be. It's because the more we tighten up our rig, the bigger these dimples got. And we just didn't want to break anything more than we needed to break. But once we glass everything back in, we'll be able to properly tune our rig again, and our boat's probably gonna sail better than she has ever in her entire life. Now that all of this is out, we can access the knees, we can extend them down further, glass them into the hull properly, and we can go through and tab all the bulkheads to the hull so that our hull is more stiff, it's more rigid, it's not gonna flex as much when we get picked up and put down, and it's also not gonna squeak as much while we're out sailing. So it's a huge project, but now that we have sort of an open, clean canvas, we can actually access what we need to access and get started.
Yeah, I think we're gonna start with my closets. We're gonna remove my closets from the V-berth, and then we're going to move the hanging locker because we do need to access the knee on the other side of it too, because that's the craziest damage in there. And then we're going to move all of the wood stove stuff, and then we'll decide if we want to keep going. I don't think will this come up? No, it's not gonna come up like that.
Part of ripping out the V-berth is ripping out all the electrical and plumbing that we installed so that we can clean it all out, and then all the plumbing is going to be run through new conduit, all the electrical is going to be run through new conduit. So yeah, we disassembled this. The pumps and stuff will probably keep because they're still good, breakers and everything, fuse holders, all this will keep. We're just going to strip it out first.
We're disassembling our plumbing as well and our electrical, but like we're disassembling everything and keeping all these bits and pieces because we've had them forever, and they are, except for this one, and they are pretty cool. They're awesome.
It's like Lego for plumbing parts.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Lego, but adult Lego. So we're just putting all into pieces so that we can reuse them when we put the boat back together. So windy today. Like the boat is moaning and squeaking from the slime lines mostly, but it's insane. I think
Feels like we're sailing.
It feels like, yeah, we're heeling over. It's crazy.
It's gonna be my new thing. It's like up here.
Ta-da!
Yeah, so we spent the morning pulling out all of the wiring and plumbing, running along both sides of the boat, and now we're just going to rip apart the closets. We're going to leave this in place for now. We're going to leave the main bulkhead in, and we're going to leave the forward bulkhead between the head and the V-berth in until we have everything else glassed in, and then we'll swap those bulkheads out at the end. But for now we're going to leave some of it installed, but this is all coming out because it's not really attached to anything anyway. And then we can prep to take the rest of the cabin sole out, which we didn't do way back at the beginning. We probably should have.
done. We removed everything from the V-berth, all the closets. We just have to clean up the hull, and then we won't touch the V-berth until we're ready for repair. It's so crazy though, like it's like we're sailing. We thought we were doing this renovation at the dock, but it's the same as if we were doing it at anchor. It's just moving so much. So I think we're calling it a day, a bit early, because the boat is moving so much, it's so loud. I feel like we're starting to get seasick trying to work, especially with the respirator mask and everything. So we're just gonna pick up where we left off tomorrow, and we're closing early. So ever since we started this refit, the number one question we've been asked in all of our comments was, why? Why are we spending our time and money and effort to fix up a 50-year-old sailboat that was never designed to be a blue water boat? And why not just buy a new boat instead? The answer is actually quite simple. We're fixing her because she can be fixed. Of course, Uma has some emotional value to us. She's been our home for the past 9.5 years. We've put our heart and soul and sweat and tears into building her into our tiny little nest. And she's taking us to magical places over the years. But that's not why we decided to fix her. We're fixing her because if we don't fix her, who will? She's gonna either become someone else's problem, then they have to fix it, or more likely she's just gonna end up on a landfill or abandoned somewhere in a marina, untouched, and just, that's the worst way a boat can die. So Uma deserves better.
You make that closet look really big.
We're fixing our boat because if we're going to advocate being nicer to our planet, throwing an old boat away just because we're too lazy to put it back into shape in order to last another 40 or 50 years, it's not really what we're about. So, to put it simply, we're fixing our boat because she can be fixed, because we have the tools and knowledge and skills to put her back together again.
The point of this refit is to fix all of the problems that have bothered us from the very beginning. When we first got the boat and we had the whole swinging keel issue, we took the cabin sole out and we re-glassed in a whole bunch of new floors to fix the structural issue with the keel, and that has seemed to do a marvelous job. We haven't had any issues since. But when we went to put the cabin sole back in, we didn't know any better, and so we just sort of put it back in. We built the nook on top of it, and ever since then, it's been a squeaky nightmare. Because the whole cabin sole isn't actually attached to anything. It's sort of just free floating on our boat. So anytime there's a little bit of flex, it squeaks and squeaks and squeaks. It's terrible. We normally have been sleeping with earplugs while we've been asleep down below while we're offshore sailing because it's so loud that it drives us a little bit crazy. So taking the water tanks out was part of this refit so that we could bring the knees further down to the bilge, and also removing the cabin sole again and getting rid of this hull liner and have the supports properly glassed to the hull so that it eliminates all of that squeaking is sort of the core foundation of all of her problems. So we've finished removing everything that we originally intended to remove, except for the cabin sole, because we do like a flat place to walk for now. The shelving is out, the nook is out, the water tanks are out, most of the V-berth is ripped out. This is all the sort of non-structural stuff that's just furniture that we've been pulling out to gain access to the bare hull so we can start putting things back in. Because over the years, we've come up with some unique solutions to the weird design of this boat from the beginning, like making the nook and the Hefty Susan and the fold-out sink in the head. But now that we've ripped out this much, we're kind of looking around at some of the other things that have bothered us about the design and the layout of the boat, and we're contemplating fixing those too while we're at it. So one of the biggest pet peeves of the design layout of this boat and a couple of other boats we've seen, actually quite a few boats we've seen, some get it right and some do what this boat does, which drives us nuts. And that is, it has an offset companionway. That's not the problem. We love an offset companionway. The problem is that you have to come down the companionway and then zigzag over to the main corridor to move forward in the boat. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why yacht designers do this. It might be sort of a weight distribution thing where if the head's on one side of the boat and the galley's on the other side, those are kind of big volumes of space, but I still don't buy it that that's the reason, because I've seen it done both ways. And so one of the things we're thinking about doing is once the cabin sole is out, and we're gonna be ripping out the galley and the head and switching the head to that side.
And if we're talking about moving the corridor to the port side, it actually solves a lot of problems that we saw with the original layout of the boat, starting with our galley. For one, this galley was designed around a diesel engine that we don't have. So this whole space is kind of waste of space, and we can definitely build this better. And the second thing about the whole galley is we can finally bring the countertop height to normal countertop height, because this is very, very tall. And we had this weird low countertop to put the freezer on, which can raise to normal countertop height. And we can also make a U-shaped galley, because we've learned over the years and sailing on other people's boats and friends' boats that a U-shaped galley on a monohull makes a world of a difference. Another thing that flipping the corridor to the port side also solves is the head. To flip the corridor means basically switching this giant bulkhead to the starboard side, and then this opening would be the corridor basically right here. But if we're redesigning the head, it means we can find a way to design a walk-in shower, because right now our head space is basically a toilet space that happens to be also a shower. But yeah, a girl can dream of an actual shower, so we're gonna make it happen on this boat.
The reality is we've done as much demo as we originally planned on doing, and we could put Uma back together with the same layout that she had before. It would be a relatively quick process. We could be done in a month or two, and then she'd be done. And the structural issues would be fixed. But we've got a saying on board, which is to do the best we can with what we have at the time. And putting Uma back together the way she was doesn't really feel like we'd be living up to that. We have 9 more years of experience and knowledge and skill and a bigger budget than we had when we first started. And it feels like the right thing to do is gonna be to rip even more out and to put her back together in a better way.
Alright guys, well now that you know what it takes for us to renovate the entire boat,
We've got a lot of work ahead of us.
We've got a lot of work ahead of us. But I think the biggest hurdle is not just a refit, because we know we can do it, but it's what we're facing this coming summer.
Yeah. June, July, August, apartments go up 5x. The marina we're sitting at right now is monthly, and starting next month, it's gonna become daily. And so if we were gonna stay here just for a couple of months, we'd have to be spending, I think they go up to like 150 a day,
yeah,
which is pretty typical in the Med, because you're only in and out of marinas for like a day or two to pick up crew. But it's much more affordable if we're here in the winter or if we get like an annual contract. So we still have to sort that stuff out.
One of the biggest thing that this project is helping us do is paring down a lot.
We've accumulated a lot of stuff over the last 9 years, as you guys may have seen when we unloaded it all from the boat.
And they're not all junk.
No,
they're
a lot of
good gear.
A lot of it's good stuff. I
Good
mean, we
stuff.
have a limited amount of space on board, so the stuff we brought on board it's good stuff. But realizing we don't necessarily need to keep all of it.
As a way to try and offset the cost of this refit, we're going to do something that we called a bilge sale, which is basically a garage sale that we'll have up in our store.
Stuff that either companies send us to test out or stuff we picked up along the way that we don't need anymore. So yeah, we're gonna make a specific place on our website so that you can go in there and buy
some stuff.
some of our stuff.
if you want to support this refit, or if you're just looking for a good book or just some like signed and personalized trinkets. Oh, yeah, this beautiful bracelet.
This matching set of
But anyway, definitely check out the Binge sale in our store now. We'll link everything down in the video description below. I hope you're excited for the next couple of
forever
months coming ahead, because it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be quite a challenge, but I think this is something we've wanted to do since the beginning, but again, we didn't have the skills or the knowledge or the budget, and this time it's going to be quite awesome. And it's gonna be cool to not put Uma back the way she was before. Everything is gonna be different. She's gonna be sailing again for hopefully another 50 years. That's our goal.
Yep. So
Alrighty.
we're excited to keep demoing and just keep ripping this stuff out. So we'll see you guys again next week.
Cheers.